Venti is back, and if you want to get the most out of him, this quick guide has you covered. Our Animo Archon is a 5-star bow user and a great support, who buffs, battery the team, and still hold the title for the best crowd control in the game, sucking enemies into a black hole that in the right scenarios completely breaks the game. In this video we'll cover his best talents, weapons, artifacts, constellations, themes, and my take on where he stands in the current meta. Hello, welcome to Genshin Filter, your quick guide for everything Genshin. So let's get started. Venti's normal and charge attack are standard arrow shots, and don't serve any real purpose in his kit. His elemental skill on top does a small animo hit that launches lightweight enemies into the air, and is mainly used for particle generation. Holding it does a slightly stronger hit and activates his Ascension 1, creating an upward wind current which is nice for exploration. His elemental burst is the main part of his kit. It fires a black hole that sucks in small and medium enemies, absorbs the first swallowable element it touches, Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, or Electro, and does tons of hit and swirls of that element over time, dealing some solid damage overall, but its effectiveness depends on the enemy size, and won't work against heavy enemies or bosses. Its pull is very strong if the enemy is in range, but the range itself isn't huge. And unlike Kazuha who pulls the enemies toward himself, Venti fires his burst away towards the nearest enemy, so you might need to reposition him before casting to pull as many enemies as possible. His Ascension 1 creates the upward wind current when holding his skill. His Ascension 4 refunds 15 energy to him and to teammates whose element will swirl by his burst after it ends. When combined with the Favonius Warbow, it can turn him into a nice battery for the team. His overall passive decreases the team gliding stamina drain by 20%. For talent priorities, focus mostly on his burst. If you want, you can level his skill for a bit extra damage, but his normal and charge attacks can be completely ignored. As for rotation, tap his skill for the particles, then see if you need to reposition before bursting. To make sure you pull as many enemies as possible, here's a method I found that works pretty reliably. Pick a random enemy at the edge of the enemy circle around you. Run past him and line him up so he's between you and the center of the enemy circle. Then when you burst, it will travel straight through that enemy into the middle of the enemy circle, pulling as many of them as possible. It won't work perfectly 100% of the time, since enemies sometimes move as you're setting it up, but I found it to be pretty consistent. His best weapon by far is his signature Elegy for the End. It gives a nice chunk of ER, 60 EM, and buffs the whole team with 20% attack and 100 EM, still considered one of the strongest supportive bows in the game. His second best option is the Favonius Warbow, which you can get for free by playing the story. It solves his energy needs, and combined with his Ascension 4, turns him into a solid battery for the team. Otherwise, the Stringless is a great option, that gives a nice chunk of EM and a solid passive for more personal damage. Other options include any bow with ER or EM. You can also go with a crit weapon for higher personal damage, but it's generally less recommended. His best artifact set by far is the 4-piece Viridescent Venerer, and it's the reason why Animo supports are so good. It gives 60% swirl damage and shreds 40% resistance to the element swirled on the enemy. For the main stats on the sand, go for EM or ER. Around 180 ER is a good spot to be, depending on your weapon, team, and substats, to consistently burst every rotation. On the Goblet, go with EM, and on the Circlet, use EM as well. But if you're using the Favonius Warbow, you can also run crit rate to trigger its effect more reliably. For substats, make sure you have enough ER to burst consistently, then stack as much EM as you can. Crit rate and damage are also nice for a bit of extra personal damage and to help proc the Favonius. Venti's constellations are very dated and not that great, so let's cover them briefly. C1 fires 2 extra arrows when using aim shots. C2 shreds animo and physical resistance. C3 raises his burst level. C4 gives 20% animo damage after collecting particles. C5 raises his skill level. C6 adds 20% resistance shred to animo and the swirled element. Overall, some of his constellations are okay, but not really worth your primo gems. You are definitely better off going with his signature weapon. As long as you're facing groupable enemies, Venti can literally work in almost any team. So let's cover his best synergies and share some team building tips. Some of his best performing team include Neuvillette Freeze, Mavuika Melt, Moalani Vape, Kinich Burning, and Alakino Vape. As you can see, these aren't the typical meta teams for these characters, but as long as your enemies are groupable, Venti can compete with a lot of other buffers just by making sure your carry hits all the enemies at once. Unlike Kazuha who can only group enemies for a short burst, some carries really benefit when enemies stay grouped for a longer period and aren't moving around, like Kinich, Moalani, and Ayaka, since their strong attack hits over time in one spot. Grouping enemies for longer duration also means you can sometimes get away without a healer, since they're completely immobilized in inside this black hole. This is especially true in freeze teams, where the whole point is locking enemies in place, which give you the option to run a more offensive teammate instead. Elemental reactions like freeze and electrocharge are naturally AoE focused. Freeze only really works on groupable enemies and not bosses, and electrocharge relies on bouncing between targets, so the more enemies the better the effect. Venti, who's all about AoE himself, really excel in these team archetypes and brings a lot of value to them. In addition to that, Venti has extra synergy with characters like Ganyu and Ayato, whose bursts combined with his create quadratic scaling, which means the more enemies you hit, the more hits will happen, increasing the overall damage. You can even pair them together for pure chaos. It's beautiful. One more thing to point is to watch out for characters who can't reach his burst once the enemies get pulled up into it, like Xiao, Sino and Chengling. So keep that in mind when building teams, and make sure your teammates can actually hit the grouped enemies once they're in the black hole. I love using Venti. He's super fun to play, and when he works, it looks and feels so good. In the early game, an Abyss is insane. Most of it is small mobs, and honestly it puts the game on easy mode. But the deeper into the endgame you'll go, the less places you'll find to use him. And it's the hard truth. Hoyovos has been moving away from groupable enemies in top Abyss floors or other hard content. So it just doesn't work when it really matters, and it makes him a very niche character. I wouldn't say this about any other character, but Hoyo needs to buff Venti. He's an Archon, and Archons are always among the best characters in their element. Venti deserves the same treatment, hashtag buff Venti. Right now he's a luxury unit. You should only pull him if you're an Archon collector or don't care about meta and you just find him fun. But for most players, I recommend saving your Primogems for someone less niche and more meta defining. At least until they make him good again. That's a wrap. If this video helped you in any way, consider giving it a like and subscribe for more filter guides. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.